My name is Corbin Lubert, and I am the head strength coach at Allegiate Gym South Bay. This is the Ask Me Anything for Block 6. Let's get into it. I want to strength train 3 days a week and incorporate some running in my off days as cardio. Any suggestions? Yes, I have a lot of suggestions on running on our off days for cardio. So first and foremost, if we're looking to introduce running as a form of cardio on our off days, we want to make sure we're not doing too much too soon. When we hear about chronic overuse injuries, like shin splints, things like general chronic low back pain, those are generally because people try to do too much too soon of high impact stuff. In this case, repeatedly running very small range of motion over and over and over again, every time that foot or that heel strikes the ground, can lead to some of those overuse injuries, painful shins, painful knees, painful backs. So key here is not doing too much too soon. So with that, when we talk about cardio on our off days, specifically improving aerobic capacity, we're looking for an activity that we can do somewhere between 45 to 90 minutes. So a pretty big span there. And again, not doing too much too soon, start on the lower end, aim for that 40, 45 minute mark. And then from there, we want to look at heart rate. So using something like an Apple Watch, a Whoop, a heart rate monitor, just something that will give you your heart rate while that activity is occurring. And we want to stay between 60 and 70% of our max heart rate. So max heart rate, I'm going to take 220 minus my age. I'm 30, that gets me to 190. So from there, staying within that 60 to 70% max heart rate range is going to put me somewhere between 115 and 135. I want to stay within that range. That's good for building my aerobic capacity. It's going to help me recover in between my workout days, my practices 1, 2, and 3 for team or strength. But it's not going to eat in to my recovery and prolong recovery or make me sore so that I can't do that next workout as effectively. If we start getting up into that like 70, 80, 90% max heart rate, not only are we not going to be able to go as long, so we're not improving our aerobic capabilities, but we're going to be sore, we're going to be tired, our CNS is going to be crushed, and it's going to negatively affect our workouts later on in the week. The next question talks about lifting 3 times a week at Allegiate and when to either sub in other accessory classes outside of team or strength, such as hypertrophy, conditioning, or arm farm, as well as other sources of cardio, such as running, biking, swimming, things like that. So how to structure your week around your 3 practices of team or strength. When we think about lifting team or strength and making practices 1, 2, and 3 a priority within our weekly structure, and then what we should do and when we should do cardio outside of that, we've got a few options. So say we're coming in, whatever split, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We have 48 hours in between workouts most of those days, with the exception of a 2-day gap in between the last day of one week and the first day of the following week. So where to put those cardio days? If we revisit that previous question where we're keeping our heart rate between 60 and 70% of our maximum heart rate, 220 minus your age, then we can really put that work in between on the off days. So again, if I'm coming in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I could do some of that low intensity, what we call long, slow distance cardio. We could do that on a Tuesday or a Thursday. It's not going to eat into that. If I come to strength on Monday, I do a very light bike ride for 90 minutes, keeping my heart rate between, for me, 115 and 135. I should be able to show up to strength the next day and do just fine. That being said, if I'm looking to incorporate something like a hypertrophy or a conditioning class in, I really like to put those things kind of at the end of whatever my training week is. So going back to my example of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I want to come into a hypertrophy or a conditioning class on Saturday. 1, because I've already got my other 3 workouts in that week, so it's not going to take away from the priority of the week. But I also get that Sunday as another recovery day before I go into my first workout of the following week. That's not always feasible depending on people's work and life schedules. Sometimes we have to come in and get that conditioning or hypertrophy class on Tuesday or a Thursday, even though we're going to show up the next day for a workout. So it ends up going practice 1 on Monday, conditioning or hypertrophy on Tuesday, and then practice 3 on Wednesday. Not optimal, but also better than not showing up at all. And honestly, our results, if we can come in 3 days a week, that's what's most important. If we can improve that to 4 days a week, that's going to exponentially increase your results with us. In the case of a class like Arm Farm, that's really just a cherry on top. So 30 minutes of buys and tries, we don't feel like that's going to take away from a team or strength class whenever that's structured. So that class being on Friday nights, 6:30, I think you could build that into your schedule or your programming every single week and not have it take away from anything else you're doing, unless you're getting just so horribly sore that you can't come in the next day. And if that's the case, we probably just need to look at our intensity and take it down a notch for that supplementary class. My next question asks why we use slow eccentrics so much. The person gave an example of a 5-second count on the eccentric or the lowering portion of the movement. They made the assumption that part of that is because it forces us to use a lower load, and in the long run, that's going to be safer. But they want to know what other reasons we use a tempo when lifting. So slow eccentrics is just one version of tempo that we can use when we prescribe a certain movement during a certain block, right? So we've already got variables like sets, reps, and based off of that intensity, we can look at any tempo, whether it's slow eccentrics, pauses, or not using a tempo at all and just going something that's very neutral, like a 2-0 XO, as just other variables that we can play with to affect adaptation. So whatever adaptation we're looking for is going to be based around this concept of time under tension. So this block in strength, we have 6 reps with a 4-0-1-0 tempo. So on a squat, that'd be a 4-second on the way down, a 0-second pause, and a 1 second on the way up. So 5 total seconds per rep. You multiply that by 6, we're looking at a time under tension of 30 seconds per set. That's going to put us in a functional hypertrophy intensification block. And that's the way we're going to categorize that when we're building out our blocks for either team or strength. Vice versa, if we want to have longer time under tension, we're going to use 2 things. Maybe a higher rep range. That's where we get into our 10, 12, 15 rep schemes. Or we can use longer tempos in there. So if we do a block where we've got 3 sets of 12 with a 3 or 4 second lowering in there, that's a lot of time under tension, and that's going to be more towards a hypertrophy or strength endurance accumulation block. With all that being said, it's just another tool that we can manipulate to get the type of adaptation that we're looking for. So the member asking this question is correct. We use tempo as a constraint to lower the weight while also increasing mechanical tension during the movement so that we can get similar results as to if we used higher weights and higher intensities to get that mechanical tension. We just use a longer time under tension to create it. My next question asks whether or not strength follows the same principles as our team class. However, this person asked it as, does strength follow the same principles as teams? This is a big pet peeve of the coaches. There is no S on the back end of team. It's just the class is called team, not teams. So while strength class might not have a themed protocol laid out, such as 6-12-24 or stage descending or anything really fancy like that, it does follow the same principles. So at Allegiate, we use block periodization. That's essentially alternating between accumulation blocks and intensification blocks. Accumulation blocks, the volume is going to be higher. We're going to do more reps per set, but the intensity, the weight being used is going to be lower. During an intensification block, we're going to use more weight while doing less reps per set, and that's probably going to lead us to doing more overall sets. So what you'll see in strength is that we do still alternate between accumulation and intensification. We're going to spend less time on the edges. Doesn't mean that we're never going to hit that, but we're going to spend more time in the middle. We're looking to, one, most of our members have a goal of looking better, feeling better, and playing better. And that functional hypertrophy, strength quality area is where we're going to really hammer that home. So that's where we want to spend the majority of our time. And that's really not that much different than team. We're also, those relative strength where the weights are really high and strength endurance where the volumes are really high is probably where we're at the most risk for injury, whether it's overuse or just using too much weight, leading to either chronic overuse injuries or acute low back pain, blowing our back out, something like that. So for our goals, generally speaking for our members, look good, feel good, play good, we want to spend most of our time in that functional hypertrophy area anyway. And for strength, that's where we're going to be most of the time. So yes, short answer, strength follows the same principles as team. What you're going to see more of in strength is more unilateral work. So we're assuming that in strength class, we have people with previous injury, we have people with asymmetries. In order to clear those types of things up, doing more split squats, doing more single leg RDLs, pulling and pushing with one hand versus two is going to help get rid of some of those, any overuse or chronic injuries that we had coming in, or it's going to help level out those asymmetries on things like force deck, NordBoard, and the functional movement screen so that we can progress that person towards team if they're interested later on. And again, team is not a better program than strength. Strength is just a different program meant for a different person. How much protein should I eat in a day? They listed some of their stats for me. They said they are a female, they are 5'9", and in their 30s. So in all reality, telling me gender, height, and age doesn't help me give you a protein quantity recommendation. What we want to aim for, whether we are male, female, whether I'm looking to gain weight, lose weight, or whatever height you are, we want to aim for 1 gram per pound of body weight. So height will affect that a little bit. Obviously, if we're taller, we'll probably weigh more, therefore need more protein. But that being said, look at the scale. We want to have 1 gram per pound of body weight. If we weigh 200 pounds and we want to get down to 190, then we can set that protein goal at 190 grams per day as opposed to 200. Set it where you want to go. Same thing if we're trying to gain weight, add muscle mass. If I weigh 190 and want to get to 200, I can set my protein goal for the day at 200 grams of protein per day. But that being said, body weight's really the metric we're going to use to gauge how much protein we should eat during the day. Why is it that Allegiate alternates the workouts so that we repeat the same workout on Monday that we did the previous Friday? This question doesn't necessarily pertain to block 6, but this is something that we have done pretty much since we reopened post-COVID. The way that the workouts rotate is Sunday might be practice 1, Monday might be practice 2, Tuesday might be practice 3, and then Wednesday resets at practice 1. So 3-day-a-week program, practices 1, 2, and 3, alternating on a 7-day-per-week calendar means that each week of a block, the practices are going to fall on a different day. And the way that that works out is that if Friday was practice 1, Saturday's practice 2, Sunday's practice 3, Monday is back to practice 1. A lot of our members do ask this question because they feel fatigued coming out of something like front squats or chin-ups on a Friday and having to repeat it again on Monday. However, what we find is that if we're always doing the same workout on Monday, so again, let's reset this. If we assume somebody's coming in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they're not coming in at all on Saturday, Sunday, so they've had 2 recovery days to go into that practice 1, they're always going to be the freshest on practice 1. They're always going to be the most recovered, and that's going to be the highest quality workout. Front squats, our front squat intensity is always going to be higher than whatever it is we do the following Wednesday, whether that's a practice 3 or practice 2, and we're doing some type of a deadlift, RDL, or pull-up, chin-up variation. We want to alternate that which day of the week that we do each practice so that we're not favoring one practice more than the other. Why are blocks only 4 weeks and not longer? So we do alternate our blocks or change the block every 4 weeks. We can look at training adaptation over a, let's say, 2 to 8 week period. So for high-level athletes who are highly adaptable or have been training for a long time, they're going to take less time to adapt to certain rep schemes and movements and tempos, whatever variables we can play with as far as sets, reps, tempos, and intensities. So we're going to change movements, sets, reps, tempos, and intensities more frequently with those athletes. Vice versa, somebody who is really young training age, young in general, or on the other end of that, older, less adaptable, they might take longer to get the adaptations we're looking for. So that's where we're looking at that 6 to 8 week time span or time frame for a certain training block. Group fitness in general, we are looking to hit a bell curve of people in the middle. So we're probably not going to do the right thing for 10% of the population that is really well trained, has been strength training for a long time, maybe in a past life we're a professional or high level collegiate athlete. Vice versa, we're probably not going to do the right thing for that person who has never done strength training before, is coming off of a lot of injury, and might need longer to adapt to a certain training scheme. What we're looking to do is hit that bell curve. So we want to be the right fit for about 80%. And we find that 4 weeks is right in the middle of that bell curve where it gets the adaptation across for most people. It's not too soon. It's not too late. And what it would look like if it's too soon, nobody would be making progress towards their goals. If it's too late, we'd have a bunch of overused chronic injuries training. I find this question really interesting. I always find personally that right around that 4th week, I'm pretty ready for that next block to start. I can't imagine there's a ton of members out there who are like, man, I really want to do this block for another 2 to 4 weeks. But we do get the question, and there's a lot of other competitors out there who change their workouts a lot more frequently. So we want to stick to that 4 weeks because we want to be able to show progress over those 4 weeks. We've talked about this in the past where I want that relative intensity on week 1 to be about 70%. Week 2, it's going to be 80. Week 3, it's going to be 90. Week 4, it's going to be 100. So that way we can show some progress. We can use that week 1 as a recovery week coming off of the previous week 4. We can get familiarized with the movement and the reps and the tempo and build up from there. That's much harder to do if we only have 2 weeks to do it. We end up training in that 80 to 90% relative intensity zone much more often. Again, for most people, that just leaves them guessing. They're changing the movements too frequently. They never learn how to do anything the right way. And they never figure out, what's the appropriate weight, that type of stuff. They're always just changing things so quickly that they have no idea what's coming next or what weights to use or how to do certain things. So by keeping it 4 weeks and not shorter, we're allowing for better adaptations. People get more familiarized with the movements. They know what weight to use. They can improve the movement pattern versus changing very quickly. On the other end, if we keep something too long, we're going to start to see more chronic injuries because of overuse. And people get sick of it and they'll stop coming in. This week, I had a member in the South Bay ask me about how to appropriately miss lifts, such as front squat and back squat. So they wanted to know if they got in a situation where they can't stand back up with the bar on their shoulders, how to essentially get out from underneath the bar safely. This is why we have Gym Awares at each rack. So Gym Aware is a tool that tells us bar speed on the way up during the concentric part of the movement. This, very similarly to time under tension, is a tool we can use to train different strength qualities. Generally speaking, for relative strength, we're looking to be between the 0.3 to 0.5 meters per second. And that's not necessarily trying to time that up as if it's a squat, come up out of that bottom of the squat. It's more about the weight on the bar dictating how fast we can stand up with the intent to stand up as fast as possible. So with that being said, if I start to see that bar speed drop down below 0.3 meters per second, it's time to call it a set. We need to rack the bar, live to fight another day. That's why we give rep ranges as a part of our workout. If the prescribed reps is 5 to 6 and I hit rep 5 and I'm at 0.28 meters per second, time to go ahead and rack it at 5. If that's my last set of the day, I'm within the rep range, good to go from there. If I have more sets to do, then maybe I need to either shoot for 5 on that following set instead of the prescribed 6, or I need to change the weight on the bar so that I can get or stay within that rep range. There is a safe way to miss a lift and get out from underneath the bar, but our goal at Allegiate is to not put our members in that situation because it is dangerous, especially if you have a room that's full of people and there's other people around. It's not exactly the safest for not only the lifter, but the people watching the lifts. We want to try to avoid that if at all possible. It isn't a good sign of coaching. It isn't a good sign of choosing the appropriate weights or a good sign of working hard. It's more about, ego lifting and putting the weight on the bar. So it's a huge reason why we lift with tempo. If we can't keep to the prescribed tempo, the bar is too heavy. If we can't maintain the speed that's been prescribed on Gym Aware, primarily staying above 0.3, then the bar is too heavy. If we can't stay within the rep range, then the bar is too heavy. All right. First of all, thank you everybody who came down to South Bay for Salsa Night. It was an absolute blast. Secondly, thank you to everybody who submitted their questions. If you have a follow-up question or if you disagree with something I said, go ahead and hit it up in the comments below. See you guys next block.